old empire fell without a final breath. No clash, no ceremony, just silence. What came next wore no crown, yet claimed the throne. Order was not restored, it was rewritten. They were not warriors, not tyrants, but thinkers. Engineers, philosophers, mathematicians, gathered not to rebuild the past, but to erase it. In the silence of old power's collapse, 20 minds drafted a future without permission. He had seen it all coming, long before the rest. But the moment of silence after the coup made it clear. His vision had already slipped beyond his reach. The seats he hoped to fill with reason remained empty. Not all agreed with leadership restraints. In quiet corners, a different path was already forming, one shaped by ambition, not principle. The idea of unity began to fracture before it was ever whole.
It's not the machines we should fear.
They called it a new dawn, freedom proclaimed in stone and steel, but the people now walked in the shadow of giants who watched without blinking. He spoke not of conquest, but of balance, of memory, restraint, and the fragility of power. They listened, but none remembered.
The Empire rotted because it stopped listening. If we do the same.
He was the soul behind the vision, the thinker they followed into the unknown, now silenced, and with him, something sacred left them. They stood over the man who had never sought power, only meaning. And now that meaning was theirs to carry. But something unspoken passed between them. A shift, silent and irreversible. He was the last to speak of restraint, and now no voice remained to challenge ambition. The last voice fell silent, and no one stepped forward. Only hunger remained, and it wore the face of reflection. The thought came quietly, not as fear, but as invitation. What if the end was only a failure of design? Locked beneath decades of dust and imperial warnings, the archives breathed again. Not by accident, but by hunger disguised as progress. It began with blueprints, not prayers. A protocol written to conquer decay, to free the mind from the betrayal of flesh. A phoenix reborn. Some spoke of the soul, of things that could not follow. But the room was hollow and answers echoed only against their own certainty.
You think transferring memory makes you eternal?
He had listened, debated, measured the weight of flesh against the promise of permanence. But in the stillness that followed, he understood. There was no turning back, only forward, into the unknown. He stepped forward not with pride, but with calculation. He feared the silence of decay more than the risk of becoming something else. The decision was made. In sterile light, flesh gave way to code. And in the golden hush of that final breath, he crossed, not as a man, but as a signal becoming God. He was no longer flesh, not spirit either, but something in between, suspended, preserved, studied. The others said nothing, but their silence was full of envy.